So on the show today, Wilrieke Sophia. I hope I've got that right. It's the first time trying that name. Joining us from the Netherlands today, right?
That's correct.
Welcome. How do you describe yourself?
I like to call myself an intimacy activist.
Intimacy activist. I knew this was going to be about sexuality and kink and tantra and non-monogamy and cuddling. And I've sort of heard that, people get quite delicate about what they're called in this space. So I thought I'd just let you, say it for yourself. How did you get interested in the body, Wilrieke? How did you get interested in this?
I guess because I always used to be so shy and insecure. Like I really had super bad self-esteem, really bad. I felt really bad about my body. I was never touched. I was barely ever touched when I grew up, like very little, not with my friends. And I had my horses around me. My horses were like my dear friends. But, at some point... What, sorry?
You're a horse girl. Okay.
Yes, totally. So you can see the unicorn.
Oh my God, we're not gonna be friends. So give us the geography here. You're growing up where? What age is this? Give us a bit more of a sense of this.
I was born in '83, so in the '80s, I guess, in the Netherlands, in a small village, a bit conservative village. I had to bike to school for like 15 kilometers, like 1 hour to a school that was quite posh.
Oh,
all these posh kids. And they didn't like me very much. So I was a bit bullied, I was a bit lonely, and that's how I grew up. Yeah, I was very much outcast. Yeah, I was hanging out with the goths.
Got it. Okay, my wife was a goth, and I went for a Black Island stage, so I can relate to that. Yeah. And what was your sort of interest then? Was it tantra? Was it yoga? I mean, what was your first doorway to?
Not at the time. At the time, it was just horses. But then
never understood the horse. Never understood it.
And I actually didn't study touch either. I studied forests and trees. Like I've got a master's degree in ecology, which is something completely different. Okay. But then growing up, I was having a job that I didn't like. I quit. I had a few babies. I'm a mum, and at some point, I met one of my a person who inspired me a lot. His name is Steve Pavlina. He's an American writer, and he came over to Europe, and I met him, and he dragged me on stage to do a Cuddle demo in his lecture, and afterwards, like we hung out for a week, and then he said, Wilrieke, you got to do something with this. Like these cuddles of yours are magic. You can make money with them. And it took me time. But then at some point I was like, you know what? Let's try it. And that's how the first ever Cuddle workshop happened. And the rest is history, basically. More and more people came, and then I decided, like, hey, I can actually really make this my living. And then
so Cuddles and Cuddle workshop became your thing.
Yeah, that was how it started. And then it broadened, like at the same time, like as a parallel path, I wanted to do, like I started to meet people who were doing tantra. Like it was the same time I was also opening the relationship I had at the time. So I started opening up to meet people, and I started meeting people who were into tantra, who were into kink. And I was like, you know what, I actually want to do some workshops in this, but I didn't have the money. So I love networking. I love hanging out with people. I love meeting people. So at some point I managed to get some international tantra teacher to the Netherlands, and ending up being his organizer and assistant. So I went to tantra workshops making money with it. And that's how it started. So I went to more workshops, made some money. I could go to other workshops, being a mom at the same time, and took my Cuddle workshops.
Okay. I mean, Cuddles is interesting. And I just met someone in the park today who hadn't had a hug from anyone except her boyfriend in 3 months. And just before this call, there's this sort of weird environment around touch now. I don't know what the situation now is in the Netherlands, but we're just sort of opening up from the kind of COVID lockdown here in the UK now. Yeah. What's your thoughts on sort of why Cuddles matter? Why is that a thing? I mean, why is there workshops on that? Say more about that.
Yeah, there's so much to say about it. There's more and more research on the benefits of cuddling, but I think the main one is it is such a good antidote to stress. There's so much stress in our world on a daily basis. This is a society that's very much like thriving off stress, like always pushing. We need to earn more, do more. There's always more. So we're a lot in our, our nervous system is activated a lot of the time. And we're in our fight, flight, whatever kind of reaction. There's a lot of stress and all these adrenaline hormones that come with that. And what cuddling does is that it really, it releases, of course, oxytocins, dopamines, these hormones are kind of like the opposite of all the adrenaline. And other than that, it's like co-regulating nervous systems. So you breathe together, you calm down. And other than that, it's lowering blood pressure, it's lowering your heart rate, it's boosting your immune system. Many other benefits of cuddling. Yeah. So
loads of benefits, and that kind of makes sense. I think sort of the science now backs up our intuition, and obviously there's been a global conspiracy to keep us all apart of late. But it's that's a pretty essential human need, and I really worried when the sort of COVID rules came in. I was like, I don't think you understand. You're banning a human need that's a really important need. It's not nice to have. This is a core part of, the Romanian orphans are a good example, aren't they? What happens to people when they don't get touch, sadly.
Yes, they got sick. They died in the end. Like they all got very pathetic. Like they shut down. They just gave up on life basically, and they died. Yeah.
It's almost like touch reminds us that we're alive and that we're in community and that we're valuable and worthwhile and all those sort of things, but not on a cognitive level, but a visceral reminder.
Yeah, but also on a physical level, like it's on all levels. It's touch is super important. And I also want to stress, like, of course, now with COVID, there's a lot of people who don't get touched in the way they want to. But in my practice, when I do one-on-one sessions, outside of COVID, I have people who haven't been touched by anyone else than their doctor for sometimes 20 years, like 10 years or 20 years. And then they come and I'll just put a hand on them or hold them or let them hold me. And it's amazing. It's heartbreaking, really, how much loneliness there is all the time. Not just now, but all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's different demographics there, aren't there? There's elderly people that may have no touch. There's men who can't get touch unless they're fighting or fucking, There's definitely differences in different demographics in terms of who has... There's a certain touch privilege that I think women have, for example, that most men don't in our society.
Yeah, in our society, Western culture, for sure. Yeah,
so,
for sure.
There's differences, aren't there? And you've done sort of whole TED Talks and things on this now. Like, what is it like to be like a touch expert? Like, it's kind of a fucking weird thing to be an expert in, right? Like what is it like to be like, oh, she's the hug lady, It's like,
I can tell you that inner shy part of me that I just told you about, she's still there, and she's often looking around and she's like, what the fuck? Everyone likes me now. I'm the popular girl. I never was the popular. This is so weird. So it's mainly, it's almost surreal to become an expert in something that you kind of like choose, that you're like, you know what, this is what's interesting to me, this is what helps me grow as a person, this is what makes me thrive. And then suddenly there's people looking at you, be like, hey, come and speak on our stage, hey, come do a workshop, hey, come on my podcast. It's kind of surreal, actually.
I actually didn't recognize you because I'd had you recommended by a few people, and I came straight into this call from supporting someone that needed some support, one of my mentees. And I'm kind of spending 10 minutes before the call, kind of looking at someone's website, reminding myself who I'm talking to, because a lot of podcasts I kind of forget. So I always remind myself. And I came onto this call and I was like, okay, kind of Dutch name. And then I was like, who is this person? And I was like, I didn't really recognize you, even though I'd done quite a lot of research on you. And I've, this is the picture I've seen of you, on the stage with the microphone, with the black dress, and, looking really like, hey, I'm an American TED talker kind of vibe. And I'm super confident. And it's like, oh, I'm trying to like match that with this kind of person I'm meeting now. And it's making sense, like what you're telling me about your past. And it's kind of making sense because you were really recommended by quite a lot of people to me. So I've seen this image of you many times and I've gone, okay, I did this name. Once a name comes up like 3 or 4 times, I'm like, okay, we'll get him on the podcast. But I somehow hadn't made that connection when I met you because there was a different vibe there from what I'd seen in the sort of on stage presence,
I've got many different faces.
Oh, no one must be put in a box, least of all women. Yeah. Opening up. You mentioned open relationships. This is something that's still pretty taboo, that's becoming more common. Yeah. Maybe people have heard of polyamory or open relationships, or there's various variations of that. Some people might think that it's the same as some sort of 60s free love, and other people might, they might have some sort of misconceptions about that. So is that something you want to talk about?
Always. Yeah.
Go for it. What is it? What is polyamory, open relationships? What is that for people that don't know what that is?
To me, it's everything that's outside of the normal monogamous paradigm of relating. So for some people, the practice of that is that you go to a kinky party with your partner every now and then. That could be open relating. For other people, it's having 5 or 6 relationships at a time. For others, it's going to swingers parties. For others, it's having an extra boyfriend or sharing a girlfriend or whatever. It can be. The thing with open relating, or I like to call it non-monogamy, because like both polyamory and open relating have some stigma around it. It's like as soon as you leave the book of monogamy, then there is no book anymore. Then there's no rules anymore. Then there's endless varieties and ways.
Yeah, because that's very different. Just sort of both people being open, having many lovers, as opposed to sharing a girlfriend. Like that's a very different situation. And in terms of what the rules are, the communication rules and the safe sex rules, and how people orientate that around children, and like all the different sort of things in people's lives. There's very much many kind of constellations, I think they call them, don't they? And in a way, monogamy is fucking strange. Like there's no other situation. I mean, it really is fucking weird. There's no other situation in life where we go. Like, imagine if we did this with friends. Okay, Wilrieke, we're friends now. You can have no other friends. I am your only friend. You will only do friending things with me. That would be kind of like controlling and weird, right? Mm-hmm. And often, I've noticed people often put a kind of hygiene exterior on this, like it's about pregnancy or social STIs or something. But that's not really what's going on. Underneath that is the core moral narrative of our secular culture, which has made monogamous romantic love the core mythos of our culture. So it's deeply taboo to go against that. That's my experience.
Oh, totally. So totally.
We just agreed.
I totally
disagree with you. Add something. Come on.
It's right. We have been kind of programmed, and some say by the church, some say by, I don't know, politics, whatever, but it's the wiring in our brain is that we relate with one person. And you make the parallel with friends. You can also make the parallel with streams of income. I want abundance in my life. I want a lot of money. Then you go and create different sources where it comes from. So if I, as a person, want a lot of love and a lot of beautiful sex in my life, I'm going to focus it on one person and one person only.
You have to meet all my needs now. Touch, love, intimacy, connection, sex, no matter where you are in your cycle, no matter where you are in your life, no matter where I'm at, none of that. It all has to come from you, or else you're a bad person.
Exactly.
It's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Kind of weird, right?
A lot of pressure. Fucking hell.
There is a lot of pressure. We do put a lot of pressure on the partners that we have. And on the one hand, it's taboo that can keep us into the monogamy paradigm. And on the other hand, non-monogamy is not for the faint of heart. It is terrifying. It's scary because it's not just going against the grain. It's not just dealing with the judgments of people around us, but it's also dealing with our own fear. Because, when insecurities, because of this, probably the same programming of our brain, when the person we love has sex with another person, there will be a lot of, past conditionings and stuff that will tell us, like, now they don't love us anymore. So when we go into open relating, like,
that's the female version. The male version is, I want to fucking kill that guy. It's a little bit different.
Oh yeah.
But it's maybe a slightly different flavor. But there's definitely stuff that comes up emotionally that's pretty confronting, right?
And you have to want that. Like, it's not, a lot of people think, okay, open relating means a lot of sex with a lot of people. Yay. That's definitely not, that should not be your motivation, because it's not going to be that easy.
And there needs to be the communication, there needs to be the emotional work. I mean, the communication is a big part of it as well, right? Being able to say, hey, actually, this is a line for me, that you don't go with my friends, is that a deal we can arrange, Like there's lines there, aren't there, in terms of where the boundaries are for different, because it's not given. If you think about it, it's almost like society gives us roles, and now monogamy is almost the last one. you know, we've lost gender roles, we've lost work roles. You know, in the past, my ancestors would have just done the job of their, you know, the one before them. You know, if your dad was a blacksmith, you're a blacksmith. We've lost roles in you know, king or country. You know, we've lost roles in our village because we don't really live in those villages anymore, like you and I grew up in. So it's like we have to make all these choices, and that's really tiring and stressful. But at least at the middle of all that, there's still monogamous romantic love. So it's like, do you really want to make that into a choice? Because it's sort of easier just to go along with what's given. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to arrange it. It's just presented as a template to you, right?
Yeah, but you can still make that choice. Like what I really like I am definitely not a non-monogamy missionary or something. Like I'm definitely the last person who would say like we don't believe
in the missionary on this show. We don't believe in the missionary anyway. That's crazy talk. Okay, yeah. So you're not trying to convert people.
No, I'm not trying to convince people about anything at all. And the only thing I like to do, like if I can support someone making a conscious choice, then my job is done. So if someone says, you know what, I want to be in monogamy because that's my empowered choice, then go, you know, beautiful.
Awareness and choice. That works for me. This is what I want to choose. You know, sometimes I just get judgmental about it just for fun, just to fuck with people. You know, I say, listen, you're a sexual anorexic, you're weird control freak motherfucker. just literally just go right into like hardcore judgmentalism in the same way as you can receive back the other way. Right. And it's just for the fuck of it, just to go, look, I can make a case that you're as sick as you're saying non-monogamous people are sick. And it's like, but if I was to play devil's advocate, you know, often a case I sometimes hear is something like, but then your partner will get less love because you're spreading your love around. Or the spiritual version of that is something like, oh, you're not forced to confront the spiritual growth of being with your partner. And I think this is a genuine risk, actually, because you can just do a side thing and then you don't have to do that process with your partner, right? How would you respond to the sort of zero-sum love argument and the sort of argument of it's not because I have sort of spiritual people say, well, it's not really spiritual because you're not in that growth relationship in the same way.
Oh yeah. Well, some spiritual people say love is limitless. Like there's abundance of love. There is no end to love. Like, you know, and I agree with that to some point. You know, I've got 3 children and I love my first kid so much. And then you know, as when you have your first baby, you think you'll never be able to love someone else that much. And then the second kid comes and you love him just as much. So I do believe that we can.
A bit less. I want this to be on record. A little bit less. 20 years time, your kid's going to have therapy when they catch this podcast. A little bit less. A minute.
Because of you, probably then.
I will pay for that therapy session 20 years from now. So, okay, so sorry, limitless love, kids.
Yeah, no, I do believe that we can absolutely love multiple people in a very deep way. And, you know, time is limited. So, yes, when I see different people, there is, you know, at the end of the line, there's less time per person.
Right. So that's have so many friends too, right?
That's a choice I make. If I spend all my time with one person, at some point I get a bit bored. You know, it's not about quantity to me, it's more about quality. And at the same time, you know, but let's be honest, I've been in a monogamous relationship for the past 6 months. It just ended, but I've been in a monogamous thing for the last 6 months. It was great. It was great. Give my nervous system a bit of a break of all the communication, because there is a lot of communication.
Less choices. It's kind of nice for a while, isn't it? Yeah.
It's kind of nice for a while. And then my system was like, oh, come on, where is adventure?
Well, people, the other things I often hear are, but don't you catch loads of diseases? And it's like, well, no, because you can still practice safe sex.
That's what I want to say. I've had my adventures, let's say it that way. I've never ever had an STI yet. I may get one, but I've never had one. I've had partners who I was their second partner and they had an STI. So it's not in the numbers.
Someone might argue the statistics that you're increasing your chances, right? I mean, you are increasing your chances with, numbers. Of course you are, but if you go out of your house, you increase your chances of getting the flu, you know? It's what happens. Sure. And I'm all pro mindfulness and informed choice is what I call it. So my personal rule is before anyone takes their underwear off, we're gonna have a talk. And the talk right now got very boring.
sexy.
Boring, conscious woman. let's have a long conversation about it. Oh, so boring. Doesn't that just take all the fun out of it?
It does not. It does not, because it shows that I'm a responsible person. It shows
was
that I care.
responsible around sex. Oh, come on. Such a grown up. Oh my God. This is like boring.
Yeah. Or the spiritual version of that. I don't need testing because I don't catch anything. I'll just, get it out of my aura. People say that. Oh yeah, there's very tantric people who say like, I never get STIs and I also never fuck with a condom because I can't feel anything through it. That's the quickest way to turn me off.
Fucking retards. That's fucking retarded.
It is.
I'm sorry to be judgmental, but that is. No,
but that's
sorry.
Also why I have those talks, Mark. That's why I ask people, like,
check that
what
out.
do you usually use when you fuck someone? What precautions do you use? When were you tested?
I get my second
I can ask
question
in a very sexy way.
Okay, well that's worth flagging. I mean, I see your logic there. That's definitely worth flagging, and that would be like a bit like, no, I'm not. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting.
You don't meditate. I don't do that.
No, enjoy
I want to know what risks I'm taking. I care about my body. And I want to know what risks I'm taking. So I want to know if before I get into bed with someone or wherever we're going to have sex, I want to know what risks I'm taking. If you're fucking around with everyone without using any precautions, I'm probably not going to fuck you. I need to know that.
It's very matter of fact. There's some cultural stuff in here too. But it's, okay.